Okay, today's story, behemshech to yesterday's story. Now, I want to say also that a number of you commented rightfully, be spilers to what Reb Chaim Chaikel, Beletsky, the Rosh Yeshiva, the much respected and beloved Rosh Yeshiva, had instructed to be written on his tombstone. So I mentioned it's a subject for Fabrengen, which, God willing, we will address. I'm thinking it's a Fabrengen that Mamish needs. Okay, we'll see. Maybe Matzai Shabbos. And it's very useful to look at this person who was really a model of a Yid, a Talmid Chacham, the emes Yiddish Shemayim, and as mentioned, he was one of the leaders of the Muslim movement, and to appreciate what Chassidus has given. So Be'ez Hashem will revisit that. The story now. So the reason with this today's story is because, so as you remember, so the Rebbe had written back to Rabbi Friedman, who was at the wedding. He told Leib Friedman that he should learn chitas and see to it that all the people he has hashpah on should also learn chitas. And he mentioned that over the years, when people wrote for questions, so in the early years it was chitas, then mezuzah, mitzvah mezuzah was very big. There was mitzvah mezuzah, and then learning Rambam and Oisen Sefer Torah, etc. That's because it's what's behind the bracha or the action that is the actual bracha. And the actions are the gate by which the bracha is nimsha. The essence of every mitzvah is not the act itself. It's the Eibishter's commandment to do the mitzvah that makes the mitzvah the mitzvah. Why is tefillin holy? It's a piece of leather and parchment because the Eibishter commanded to do it. That's what makes it holy, notwithstanding all of the insight and meaning behind tefillin. Okay, so a story related to this, which some of you may have heard part of it, maybe all of the story is as follows. So the Rebbe told the story at Fabrengen in 1951, Sukkot Fabrengen. He said that the Frierdiker Rebbe related, and he writes it in his Rishimus as follows: that once his father, the Rebbe Rashab, was playing with his older brother, the Razah, Reb Zalman Aaron. That's how the Tzemach Tzedek referred to his grandchildren, already his children. He was the Razah and he was the Rashab. Razah means secret, mystery. He was a very great man. He was older. So the Rebbe Rashab was 4 or 5, and the Razah was 5 or 6. And what were they playing? They're playing Rebbe and Chassid. That's what they would play. So when they were deciding who's Rebbe and who's Chassid, so the Rebbe Rashab said, I don't want to be a Rebbe, because the Rebbe is only one. A Rebbe is not einer. So the Razah was the Rebbe, and he's going to be the Chassid. So now the Rebbe Rashab is going into Yechidus, and first he's asking a question in Haskalah. What's his question? What is a Yid? Imagine this child is 4 or 5 years old, is asking his older brother, what is a Yid? So the Razor of Zalman Aaron answers, a Yid is fire, Eish. So the Rebbe Rashab asked, so why is it when I touch another Jew, I don't get singed, I don't get burned? So the Razor answered, because you're also fire. And fire doesn't burn fire. Then the Rebbe Rashab asked him a question in Avodah, in his service of Hashem. And the question was that he had transgressed. What was his transgression? His transgression was that on Shabbos, he had cracked 3 walnuts. What's the problem? Because the Alter Rebbe says that it's better a Yireh Shemayim or Bal Nefesh shouldn't eat walnuts on Shabbos. Because on the Shabbos, as we know, you cannot take the bad from the good. So the outer shell, okay, you crack it, but as you know, the walnut is wrapped in this membrane. It's very difficult to extract the nut from the inner more refined shell. So A God-fearing person should avoid the whole problem and not eat. And he ate. He did. So the Razah told him a tikkun. Look at the tikkun. He should say l'chun ranana in the siddur, not by heart. And likewise, he should daven in the siddur not by heart. And even the bracha that he makes, he should say it from the siddur and not by heart. Finished. That was his answer in Yechidus, and the kids then kind of separated, did their thing. Now the Rebbe and Rivka is watching all of this, their mother, and she sees, I guess sometime later, that he's not doing it. That the Rebbe Rashab is not following the instructions of his brother. So she asked him, why aren't you doing it? And he said, it's not going to help. He's not a Rebbe. And he actually, the story goes, he couldn't say Re with a W. And Nishki Rebbe, he couldn't say the letter R yet. She says, why? I say in Yiddish, he didn't sigh before he answered me. And then he answered, and he continued, es helft nicht the Eitze, es helft the Krechts. It's not the advice per se that helps, but it's the sigh that precedes the advice. That's what helps. So the similar story. So it's the empathy that the Rebbe has and really connecting with his fellow Yid. That's the bracha. Then the advice that Rebbe gives is the channel by which to reveal that connection and that bracha. So it ties in with yesterday's story again. The various things that Rebbe would answer in various epochs for problems that people turn to him. It's not the Eitzah that helps, it's the Krechts that helps. Maybe now it's already late already, but a famous story with the Mittel Rebbe, that he had to stop Yechidus once in the middle because he was exhausted. And the Rebbe said, the Fidig Rebbe said, that the most difficult thing in Yechidus is the constant, and this is rapid. A Yid comes in, it means completely investing oneself in that Jew, and then divesting oneself in preparation for the next Jew that comes in, and this is exhausting. But beyond that, since we're telling you, so you know that the Mittel Rebbe once stopped Yechidus, and he answered, they asked him why, for a few days before he resumed. And he said that in order to be able to answer, this is a spiritual failing or problem, and you have to find that within yourself and fix it, and then you can give the advice to the other person. And a Yid came to me and asked me something that I needed to labor to find that within me, of course, in a very subtle way, address it and fix it. Only then could I continue in Yechidus. And that's part of the Krechts. The part of the Krechts is, first of all, the empathy for the other Jew, and then the divine providence that Rebbe is hearing this. He has to find this within himself and address it and fix it, and only then can he give an Eitzah to the Yid, and then the Eitzah works. That's, of course, a general message, for chinuch and all relationships. If you want to be an effective educator, it's not through preaching, no matter how valid your teaching is. The child, your friend, your spouse has to see this within you. And if you're working on it, and it's something that you at least are working on and address, then anything you're going to say is going to be effective because you are the inspirational example for it. So that's just a simple manifestation of this truth. Okay, friends, we'll daven.
Shkoyach.